how this AI company grew 383% in revenues in 1 month. Dive into the story of AITX, an innovator in AI tech, achieving groundbreaking growth, crossing bookings that are more than 500K in monthly recurring revenue. This isn't just growth, it's the future being written today, and you're invited to be part of this exciting journey, a testament to the potential of AITX's cutting-edge solutions in reshaping our world.
Welcome to another Hobo Talks. On this one, we're going to be talking AITX. Haven't made a video on them in a little bit, but they recently just came out with some new information via a fireside chat. So that's what we're going to review. We're going to put in my little 2 cents, my little bit of input, and a lot of things that you guys been saying on my videos about too many shares. What are they going to do? Why is stock price dropping? He pretty much addresses everything. So let's get to it. Oh, before we get started, if you have AITX, how do you feel about the company? How do you feel that they've done? You feel like Steve Reinhardt's isn't fulfilling everything you wanted, or quite the opposite? Do you feel like he's doing a good job? You like the weekly videos he does? Let me know below.
We're going to talk about all that on that different feed. So, all right, let's get into this. All right, let's get into our guest of the day. Back at it, man. I'm telling you, I love doing this. I absolutely love doing this. And I love doing this with merch. Gotta say, I feel cool. All right. Our guest today, Troy McKenna, Chief Security Officer and Senior VP of Sales, and CEO Steve Reinhardt. Let's bring him in. Gentlemen, welcome back to the BFC. How are we doing?
Good morning, good afternoon, Eric. Doing great. I'm doing great this morning. You know I love our chats. I love them so much I brought on a special guest.
Yeah, the elephant in the room. Oh my gosh. We have a newbie. Troy, welcome to the BFC.
How are you, Eric? Great to be here. Appreciate it. This is awesome. And you are right. Your merch is cool. You do look cool. Bringing some safety and security to them as well.
Cool. And now you were, and this is something I just found out before the show and backstage, you were a regional supervisor for the FBI. All right. You didn't do a background check on me, did you?
Well, it wouldn't be smart of me to tell you whether we did or we didn't. But
so what does that experience bring to the table for AITX?
Yeah, it's great. So yeah, I spent 23 years with the FBI, mainly out of the Detroit division, where I ran a multi-jurisdictional organized crime and narcotics task force. But more importantly, as it relates to AITX, I spent my time also as the person that was responsible for facility security and the liaison for the NFL and the NHL out of that region. So what that did is it exposed me over the last 10 to 15 years to all the technology that was coming forward in those spaces and what was new. And along the way, I got exposed to RAD and AITX. And I got to tell you, over about a 6-month period of doing my due diligence and deep dive, there was nothing out there on the landscape that was doing what this company was doing. And then dear to my heart, and hopefully we get to talk about it a little bit, RAD and AITX was involved in some firearms, analytics that were really truly bringing safety, one, to the higher or to the education space, K through 12 specifically, where I had some experiences in my career that made that kind of dear to heart. And then also higher education, and as well as some safety solutions for law enforcement officers, my family, the folks that I kind of spent all of my adult life with. So it was really exciting for me. It became a no-brainer, and I'm so happy to have landed here doing good things along with Steve and all of the folks at AITX that are working really hard every day.
Yeah, and I do think that we're going to see a presence in this more so in the education system. That's my field. So I have a true appreciation for it. Steve, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'd love to hear an opening statement. Go for it. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much. Okay, I want to lead off with a couple of different things, right? Obviously, we're going to talk about the stock a lot because there's a lot of questions about the stock. So we're going to talk about that. But before we get to the questions, I want to just kind of level set what we're doing here. Okay, and basically we are playing towards a vision of the future that is clear as day to me and pretty clear to at least our team, many people in the industry and many people in the world, although it's not yet kind of commonly known or accepted. But the vision is this: over the next 3 to 5 years, our world is going to change, and we are going to have AI-enabled devices at the edge performing a ton of work that has been traditionally done by humans. Now, this goes everything from, fast food workers, right? Templates of automated burger makers and so forth, packaging. We already do it extensively in warehousing. What we're doing is we're bringing those same basic concepts, which I look at and are so obvious to me, we're bringing them into security and facility control. The purpose of this is, number one, it's inevitable, so why not us? And it was that mantra that carried me through 5 years of really struggling to get this thing moving. So, I know it's happening. We're seeing it happen right now. We're seeing RAD's stationary devices uptick big time in sales. I mean, you see that. I issue the press releases. We've talked about it a couple times, and that's huge. But over the course of this year, towards the end of this year, and really next year, as our mobility devices really hit, then that vision really starts to come true more. Of course, we're embedding large language models into our devices. We have more, and there's so much happening, but the general idea is that 3 to 5 years, we're working with machines. Machines are doing more of our job. It's more of a normal, natural occurrence to see robots and to be talking to robots. So we're just here to execute that vision that we see. I want to just kind of open up with that statement.
I did.
Okay, great. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll tack on to that and I'll say, listen, in this call, we're going to talk about some stuff. Heck, I think I'm going to give my target date for when we're going to uplist to NASDAQ. Okay. I want to make sure everybody knows and they hear it from me. Number one, there's a lot of moving targets involved in building a business. There's no fixed timetable. That's number one. So timing can change. We can pull it up, we can push it back depending on.
So that's some big news right there. Uplisting to the NASDAQ. I'm actually curious to see what he's gonna say. I've had some thoughts on this, and I'm not that familiar with the overall process, but I know their stock is way too low, I believe, to be on the NASDAQ. I think it needs to be $1. So I'm not sure if that means a reverse stock split to get it back there. That's one of those things that I've been regretting and hoping doesn't happen. So I'm curious to see what he says on that.
Performance. Number two, there's a host of unknown things that can happen along the way that also can shatter the stream. So I want to let everybody know I'm supremely confident and our team is supremely confident, but anything can happen. So just kind of be aware there's no guarantees. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that I stated that. Back to you, sir.
Our first question is from Jacob Morano. Please address dilution. I've been following investing for over 2 years and believe in the technology from outside looking in. It appears smart, deliberate decisions are executed, but baffled that the stock price hasn't maintained a positive trend. I guess it's a good buying opportunity, perhaps. I'm a veteran and have been in harm's way. I certainly believe in the power of being and feeling safe. Take care and thanks for the opportunity. That is from Jacob Moreno.
Jacob, thank you so much. Thank you for serving. Really appreciate that. Let's talk about dilution. Well, obviously that's the question, so we're going to address it head on. I wrote some notes, which I ran by legal. So I'm sorting between my comments and their comments as I kind of form the response here. So listen, sometimes I feel like being a present and engaged OTC CEO is like running, OTC 101 class, right? Because there's different kinds of dilution, there's different purposes for it, and I want to specify what those are. But ultimately, the question comes down to why isn't the stock higher? That is basically the question that's being asked. And Jacob, the stock is there's no single button that's pushed. In general, there are exceptions. There's no single button that gets pushed that drives stock performance. Stock action is dictated by a variety of factors, including company performance, investor sentiment momentum, general economic conditions, political inputs, investor inputs, Wall Street inputs. There's a whole host of things that happen in order to get the price that we're at. So, it's been a common theme. Hey, dilution is bad. Oh my God, AITX, right? But the reality is is I'd make this bargain every day. And I made it consciously. And I've talked about it, and I'll share it again. If we could dilute the stock by 50%, and if we could gain 500% in company performance and gain performance to the point of operational profitability and get onto or continue an exponential growth curve, and that's what dilution is good for. And we're going to continue straight up. So over the past couple of years, we've diluted, of course, and we've grown the company brilliantly, I might say, and exponentially. And that's why we're here on the OTC. Believe it or not, companies are on the OTC to sell shares, literally. Either the owner's shares, either lenders' shares, so they can continue to raise money and build an organization. That's why companies go public. It's to access public capital markets. And we're no different. The issue becomes, and what gets polluted and perverted, is when lenders and CEOs use this structure to pump and dilute on fake companies, or on companies that have a premise that's never going to get to market, or on companies that aren't staffed properly to ever bring a concept to market. And there's a myriad of issues of how a company won't get taken off. Now, in some cases, the motives of the CEOs and the lenders that support them are genuine, and things just don't work out. That happens. Business is hard. Developing a concept, bringing it to market is hard. In other cases, there's definitely malicious or nefarious intent in terms of really just trying to sell shares. And obviously, we're not that case. When we're delivering performance that's 500% over prior year, then we're clearly doing something right. So I want to make it clear, we're going to continue to raise money through public markets as we have, which the market talks about dilution. Last piece on that I want to say is, there's different kinds of dilution, and AITX has been subject to them all. Before I took over as CEO, we had what, we all know would be called toxic convertible notes. And these are convertible notes that on the surface appear benign. And when they get reported in press releases and on SEC filing statements, they appear benign. And the what gets published is something like XYZ company took, $400,000 from ABC lender, and the terms are 6 months, 8%, and can convert into 600 million shares if whatever, right? Like whatever those terms are. And that's all true, and that's all well and good. The problem is it's only a fraction of the story. Because what happens in reality is the company that's received the money generally, sometimes deliberately, doesn't pay the note back. When you don't pay the note back, you go into default. Now, those default terms aren't issued or talked about in the press releases or in the SEC filings.
Mhm.
So as investors, we have no visibility to it. But those default terms is where lenders make extraordinary amount of money. And I'm not judging them, understand me. I'm not judging them. I'm telling you how the system works today. So default terms might say, hey, I'm going to buy the stock in at, my shares, my convertible note is going to convert at 2 cents, okay, regardless of what the shares might say. But if you default, that buyback comes in at 0001. This is very common. This is not uncommon. Now, all of a sudden, you've got a shareholder, lender, investor, whatever you want to call them, with a boatload of shares at almost no cost basis. And that can significantly drive share price down should that lender shareholder decide to sell or dump on whatever terms that they choose. So those are the dangers of dilution. And I certainly encourage everybody who is looking at stocks to look at the financials or ask the CEO or ask the company, hey, are there convertible notes at stake here? And what are those terms? And what are the default terms? Because that can lead us to destructive dilution. When I look at AITX and I look at the significant dilution that we've done, what I see is from my perspective, a stock that's held up incredibly well because the lender didn't get the shares at 001. They get them at what I consider a slight discount to market. So they're in the same boat with us. They want this stock going to a penny, 2 pennies, 5 pennies. They'll make a ton of money on it.
People.
Is this live? Like, can you scroll down? Because I replied to that a little while ago.
I can't. I just screenshotted that.
Okay.
But you can give your reply here.
I want to get this reverse split 2024 thing off the table again. You know, like, I don't know.
Mhm.
Every single time I'm around, it seems I've got to point people to a press release or to our corporate notes that restrict us from doing that. So just to be definitive, there is no reverse split plan for 2024. You know, we're pushing up against our $10 billion
No reverse split, and they do plan to be profitable, so that is interesting. So let's see how this all rolls into them launching on the NASDAQ.
10 billion share authorized, right? And, you know, my goodness, there's 10 billion shares out there. Wow. Still rocking $24-25 million market cap. You know, still rocking some of the best volume in the industry, still growing exponentially. So as bears will generally try to pump the idea of 10 billion shares. Oh my goodness, how terrible can that possibly be? It's a talking point for a bear. That's just one side of the coin. 10 billion shares isn't a problem if you have a great growing company. You know, it could trade at 001, 002, 003, a penny, you know, whatever it is. It's like, it's really just a factor more from my perspective of the market cap. I look at the market cap. Hey, do you have 10 billion shares open on a company with a market cap of $50,000? Problem. If market cap something that's still running in, you know, the 8 digits, then a different perspective. So thanks.
Right on. I have a bring up Bailey, the investor, trying to think of how to form this question, but I'd like to hear some perspective on the debt. Any ideas of when we can see it begin to trend downward in a meaningful way? Long-term investor and fan.
Yeah. I expect that it's going to trend downward in a meaningful way starting at the end of this year as we turn profitable, for sure. And, you know, my plan is next year to take a massive swipe at the debt. And, you know, Eric, I might jump ahead and answer some of the other questions beforehand because, you know, I like sharing stuff, you know, and I decided a little over an hour ago that I would share my target date for when we'll uplist to NASDAQ. Even Troy's like, what?
Yeah, I'm drumming the
Drum roll. Wait for it.
Listen,
Go for
I'll share because this is public and this has been registered and press release is going out tomorrow morning about, you know, to drive people to watch this. But the plan is quite simple. And this has been the plan for the last couple of years. The plan started out with solidify the technology, solidify the team. Done. Next plan was, the next fit milestone was obtain operational profitability. As we stated November 3rd, and as we'll restate today, we're on track for that this year. So we'll check that box. 2025 plan, pay down debt. 2026 plan, begin the application process and negotiation process with NASDAQ to get listed on that senior exchange and get out of the OTC. It's going to be a while before you see us spending $7 million on a 30-second ad. I'm just going to say that right up front, right? Like, you know, a lot of things are going to do with $7 million. An ad might not be one of them up front. What we've been successful at doing is getting into different movies and publications, you know, and driving, you know, helping drive awareness, right? Because we're trying to, you know, hit a lot of different areas to drive awareness and get a little bit of people's mind share, little bit of people's mind share along the way. And I got more answers for you on this one, Cameron, but I'll share that this month is going to be a fun month. There's going to be a couple of things that happen. Number one, that crime show, our episode is supposed to air within the last 10 days of March. And, you know, I mean, I know a little bit what happened and, you know, this is kind of funny, but as they were filming the scenes, I was at home watching through Rad Dog's eyes the event as it was happening. So that was really cool. So that's going to come out in the last 10 days of this month. And then One of the movies that we filmed like a couple years ago is having its premiere this month. And if I'm told correctly, again, because until I see it, I don't know, there could be a really interesting scene where the title star is with a Rosa. And so again, I'm excited to see that. And
More
I'm
red
thinking,
carpet, Steve. Is that what's going to happen? More red carpet, Steve.
I think there will be a red carpet Steve moment on that one. Yes, yes. So those are things that we're doing to get awareness without spending $7 million.
Yeah,
So I
and
would say that, industry awareness within the security and facilities management industries is good and growing strong. Troy, of course,
Mhm.
shared kind of similar stories to what's happening within Allied. So that's kind of running in parallel with what's happening in the industry. And we do that a variety of different ways by having high profile boards of advisors, by hosting events with, the largest security company and smaller security companies. And, also in March, we have a healthcare forum, which is going to have applicable continuing education credits for healthcare. And we're doing that with Allied. So a lot of those types of grind it out type of activities lead to results. That said, no question that public awareness is barely scraping the surface. We have a very well-known competitor who has excellent public awareness. And, that's the benefit of being a first mover. So we're going to be first movers in other areas, and we're going to fight our way to the top as happens.
business
Like,
development team to address the incoming interest in healthcare, the incoming interest in
So I think that's actually a pretty big deal that they've had so much interest that they felt like they needed more people. They didn't need one person; they needed two people. So I think this is a big deal in healthcare. From the like the light my way type scenarios, I could see that being a pretty big deal. So that's pretty cool to hear.
education, and some of that leading, right down to the close to the finish line on becoming customers. So what I'll say to that question is that we are gaining that momentum, but we're not doing it through massive marketing efforts like the Super Bowl. We're doing it through what I like to call cut and paste, because these industries are very predictable. Chief security officers in major enterprise organizations find it much easier to just look to their left and right, to their peer groups at other companies, and see what they're doing. And if they're doing it successfully and they're speaking highly about their experience, they tend to just replicate across the vertical. And that's exactly what we're seeing happen because we have some really happy customers. So that's where we're gaining success. Isn't through spending a ton of money for mindshare, it's winning customers through great deployments. And that's, I see that to be the future of how we continue to grow.
All right, let's see. We have one from Zoe Rosenstock. As AI becomes more ubiquitous, are you seeing any rise of security technology competitors? How is AITX positioning to stay ahead?
hmm. Hi, Zoe. Thank you for the question. I see some competitors or would-be competitors at the very, very low end of the scale of where we're at. So we have multiple years and tens of millions of dollars in developing Rosa, if you want to call it that, or RadSoc, if you want to call it that, or ROS, if you want to call it that, because the lines blur between the software and the hardware and how it runs all together. We've got years, not only of millions of dollars of hardware and software development, but also in vision. And so I'm very, very confident that there's nobody close to us in what we're doing. And I do lay awake at night, paranoid, in general, fairly paranoid about losing our technological lead and wondering what pieces on the chessboard I have to move around to make sure that we have a 2 to 3 year lead. Competition will be good, and it will be good for us.
I think this is a very important point. The fact that they're not just looking at themselves, they're looking at what's coming up. The fact that they're trying to keep a lead over things. I think it's really kind of a stress point to say that technology can only stay ahead of other technologies so long. Unless you have some new groundbreaking thing that's just no one else can replicate, eventually someone else is going to catch up. So the fact that they're looking out at other companies, I think is a big deal. Earlier, they mentioned about trying to do acquisitions on drones and some other stuff like that. This is very important. And this is actually a very positive thing to me. I like that they're doing this, and I like the fact that the CEO has that in mind.
It will further legitimize and give credibility to autonomous remote services, which of course we coined and wrote the book on. So I'm not fearful of that at all. Um, I am fearful of not being able to meet demand. I will say that because we haven't dug into our backlog as much as I've wanted to over the last few months, that we have not been able to meet demand.
A couple questions here. Now, this is from Mike Straight. Hi, Steve. Thanks for all your updates you give via YouTube weekly. And I got to say, you are very active with the updates, regular, very consistent. Love that. I have 1 million shares of stock in AITX. I would like to know why the stock barely moves when there is so much news and comments about how well sales are going. Normally, I thought all that good news, sorry, I'm trying to read it here, would at least bump the stock a fraction of a cent. To me, I'm new to investing. What other stocks I own, if they even mention something about a new sale or new contract, the stock moves up normally. Do you think that the stock will break the 1 cent point anytime soon?
Mike, welcome to the OTC, my friend. Welcome to the OTC. This is like Alice in Wonderland sometimes. Sometimes I put out a press release and I think, man, we're going to a penny with this press release, right? Like, I say, hey, Rebs are on a $5 million annual run rate or blah, 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 right? I'm like, man, people are going to love this. And stock goes down. And likewise, I put out something benign like, hey, Troy and I are participating with Allied on a thingy, and boom, stock goes up, right? So just from my perspective, I'll share with you, I have gone beyond trying to guess or predict stock action on good news or mediocre news. I don't know how it moves. And earlier in the call, I addressed some of the factors that affect stock action moving up and down. I again would say the stock moves in a significant way every day. And by that, I mean, if we're trading 100 million shares a day, that's significant movement.
Hmm.
What that means is that, hey, people are buying and selling. That's movement. People are getting in the stock. We're getting on people's radar. We're building awareness. We're building excitement. And that's all positive movement. Um, Predictions on a penny. Now, the beauty of that is that that's your department, my friend. I can't speculate on it. Um, it's outside of the role that I have. SEC forbids CEOs from speculating on their stock price. But hey, happy trading, and thanks for the question.
All right. So that's basically going to be it. I'm going to go ahead and cut it short there. Long story short, there's a lot of good news coming out of AITX on this one. I'm going to put the link below if you want to watch the whole video. I cut that down to about half an hour, but it was about an hour and 10 minutes, I want to say, something like that. So a lot of questions that I skipped. A lot of people were asking about the stock price, why it wasn't going up, going down. I think Steve basically answered about twice, and after that, it was kind of like, all right, I'm not exactly getting it, but it is kind of is what it is right now. But there was a lot of other questions that were asked about backlog and things like that. So I definitely recommend you check out the full video. Like I said, it's about an hour, 10 minutes there. So uh, if nothing else, something you can just put on in the background, and definitely would say give a like, comment, subscribe to the original person who did this. This was not on the AITX channel. It was on the Fireside Chat channel. Was a good watch, at least for me as an investor. I think that's one of the things I'm supposed to say. I am an investor into AITX. So a little bit biased, but at the end of the day, I think it's good to do research and good to know about things that you're in. Once again, if you still here, put a comment below. How you feel about AITX as of today? Feeling good about it? Feeling bad about it? Let me know below. In case you didn't know, I's a hobo. Thanks for watching.